Good morning. Good morning. My name is Raven Whittington. I'm a chamber board member, a attorney at Porter Simon, and a reluctant participant this morning with all the snow. Who wanted to just sleep in a little bit this morning? No, none of you. Come on, be honest. All right. Well, thanks for coming out. Thank you to our presenters. We have an emergency preparedness presentation this morning, which I think was about to be about fire, but now it's probably just about how we're going to allocate all our resources to pothole repair, snowplow, and chiropractors for the community for lower back and shoulders. Is that right, Councilman? Yeah, it's in the general plan update? Okay, good. Good, all right. So let's thank our sponsors this morning. The presenting sponsor is Kelly Brothers Painting. The latte sponsors are Tahoe Forest Health System, the town of Truckee, East River Public Relations and Marketing, Tahoe Mountain Realty, Porter Simon, a law office. The cappuccino sponsors are Pacific Crest Wealth Planning, Mountain Hardware and Sports, and the espresso sponsors are Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation, Got Dogs, JK Architecture Engineering, Wild and Rough, Mount Lincoln Construction, Auerbach Engineering Corporation, Dixon Realty, Tahoe, NV5, and the media partners, Tahoe Truckee Media, 101.5 FM, Truckee Tahoe Radio, Sierra Sun, and Moonshine Inc. So thank you for making this possible. And then we'd also like to thank the members of the, excuse me, at the chamber that put this on, Jessica Penman, and the chamber staff, Ruth Gearsey and Melissa Williams. Wouldn't be possible without them or the board that puts this together. And then the community sponsors are the community participants, Kelly Cutler, Mayumi Peacock of Moonshine Inc., Ernie Grossman, Gerald Herrick of the fire department, Tony Lashbrook, Jim Porter, Porter Simon, kind of retired, Deb Ryan of TTCF, Ted Owens, Tahoe Forest Health System, Emily Vitus of the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency, and Jessica Carr of SBC. And again, thanks to Rory with Tahoe Truckee Media, who's back there in the back room handling the AV as he always does, making this possible to see after the meeting. You can stream it. And thanks again to the town for allowing us to use the council chambers. And we're going to start with Eric Hornvet, who is the wildlife prevention manager. Woo! He hates wildlife. Yep. Eradicate them all. The wildfire prevention manager of the Truckee Fire Protection District. And he's going to be talking about year one of Measure T accomplishments and the successes, as well as discussing the 2023 Community Wildfire Prevention Fund programs available to the community and the wildfire resilience efforts. Good morning. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. You know, I got Taylor on the funds. Luckily for us, Measure T can't be diverted. We're just going to stay foot on the gas pedal about wildfire resilience and wildfire prevention. So here to talk to you about kind of the accomplishments we had with building our momentum, kind of getting things done our first year, and then where we're headed with apparently fire season rapidly approaching is what I'm supposed to tell everybody. Okay, so we'll go over a little bit, what is Measure T, talk about our curbside green waste and pickup program, our defensible space program, our forest management projects and programs that we have rolling on, our big community wildfire protection plan that we're mid-process on, and then kind of what we're thinking about on some approving evacuation and some of those pieces too. And one piece I really got to give a shout out to is really cool that, Measure T was passed by the voters in September of 2021. And, the fire district and the whole community didn't want to wait for the taxes to hit because that would have been waiting until now. We just received, the first half of those revenues in January. So Truckee Fire and the Truckee Fire Board authorized to spend out of reserves and really get the work moving last season. So building a brand new division, hiring some full-timers, seasonals, getting contracts out there, getting money back into some of those tree service and defensible space companies, etc. So cool to see us, keep that foot on the gas pedal and, trying to get in front of this issue. Perfect. So here's the team we have. It's pretty small. So we all work underneath the fire chief, of course, and we have a Measure T Citizens Oversight Committee that provides financial oversight for the tax measure. And then we have three full-timers. It's myself as the wildfire prevention manager. Dylan Sheedy is our registered professional forester. Arden works as a wildfire prevention specialist, and then every year we bring on a team of about 4 to 6 defensible space inspectors that work seasonally, plug them into those neighborhoods, conducting those one-on-one inspections with homeowners. And then, of course, we work with a ton of partners, ton of contractors. We get a lot of that work and that money, back out via competitive bid processes, etc. This is a great quote from Chief McKechnie back there. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's just really important that we know we need to stay focused on removing fuels around our house, thinking about that ember ignition around our home, and just working together as a community, all hands on deck approach to take actions to increase our wildfire resilience. Okay, quick overview. Here's our curbside green waste program. So this program is strictly designed to help residents break down any barrier associated with removing all of that woody biomass from within that 100-foot defensible space zone of your house. So you're removing shrubs, trees, dead trees, tree limbs, all that material. You no longer have to try to put it in the back of your Tesla. You can just put it on the edge of the curb, sign up, and we come pick it up. So it's a super awesome program. It was a huge success the first year, but it's really focused on reducing that hazardous fuel, that defensible space material in your home, next to the roads, next to your driveway, and throughout your community. So great program to keep using. Here's a little heat map of where we saw our biggest use of the program last year. So you can see up on the top, we had a lot of use up on the summit, Kingvale, Plavada, Serene Lakes, and then a lot of it focused where our inspections were. We actually inspected almost all of Donner Lake last year, Prosser Lakeview, Olympic Heights, so you can kind of see that the program and the use of the Green Waste program follows our inspections. We come out, we educate on what work needs to be done, they're educated on the program available, and then we really see that heat map there. So cool, but it's still available to anyone in the whole fire district. So great program, and we got a lot done. We had 2,478 piles picked up. 39% of those had more than one pickup, so we don't limit that you can only have one pile per year. It's like keep using it. We know defensible space is a heavy lift, and this program's here to support it. It ended up being almost 9,000 cubic yards of flammable material. I'm not that great at math, but a 30-yard dumpster, 9,000 divided by 30, that's a ton of dumpsters. It's like 300 dumpsters. So a ton of work was done. And the residents put it right back in. For every $100 of Measure T funds that the fire district spent on this program, the community self-reported back $121 spent on help, whether that's the neighborhood boy or a contractor, and 4.6 hours of work. So a ton of work being put back in by the community to use this program. So it's cool to see that being matched and being used. Another cool one we had was our green waste dumpster. So if you buy a green waste dumpster through TTSD, submit your receipt back to the fire district, we reimburse $75. And that processed over 336 of those dumpsters. Same thing, removing especially that finer fuel, those pine needles, those pine cones, the stuff that you can't put on the edge of the street to be picked up. So great programs there. We're one of the first agencies in California that's actually moved to pickup instead of just chipping. So this is what that looks like. It is a massive semi-truck mounted, 50 to 60 cubic yard dump truck with a jib mounted crane on it. And so we're actually coming by, picking up all the material, hauling it to the Eastern Regional Landfill where it's then being utilized. So it's being reprocessed, it's being utilized, not just being chipped to left to sit and rot and decompose on the ground. So pretty unique program, and we really hope that we're moving forward towards kind of that biomass utilization piece too, and helping be a good partner in biomass utilization. We did offer some chipping last year, and this will be going on again too, thanks to the Fire Safe Council of Nevada County. Similar program, same material. As you're seeing, the chips get left behind. So some people like the wood chips, but we're really kind of shifting towards just pickup only is going to be the preference. And then, utilizing the Fire Safe Council of Nevada County's program for chipping where residents really want it. Quick little summary, here you can see how busy it gets. We stayed busy the whole year. So like May to October, we just stayed slam busy. July and August, they peaked a little bit, and then October peaked as we were wrapping up the end of the season. But we were processing a lot of piles, close to 400 plus a month, all last summer. So we want to keep that up. We're expecting this year to probably hit 3,000 or more piles, so another 500 plus increase over the year. This is the little stat that we had. The pickup program reduced the impacts of individual dump runs. So 9,300 kilograms of CO2 is like us eliminating 5 cars being off the road for a year. So a lot of CO2, those individual dump runs produce a lot of fossil fuels, a lot of CO2 emissions. So kind of cool. You can pull this program back into that carbon benefit too. That we eliminated 5 cars driving 20,000 miles a year off the road by offering this program to the residents. All right, our defensible space program. So this program is really intended to educate our public about structure ignition, right? What is that ember ignition? How do embers ignite your house, material next to your house, and what can you do every single year, and what big heavy lift projects do you need to do, every 2 to 3 years to make sure you're keeping your property secured and as resilient to wildfire as we can, and then coupling it right back into kind of the insurability aspect too, right? Making sure our program mimics the California Department of Insurance best practices, IBHS, kind of all these insurance ties too. So this is a quick snippet of what it looks like when we're out there. We have a sweet tool. We're actually seeing the footprint of the structure, the property lines. We're dropping individual pins where we're finding things like, hey, right here at your house on the east side, you need to remove the limb 6 feet up off the ground on this specific tree. So we're able to drop pins, take pictures, mark it up on the tablet. So you're getting a really comprehensive report. And the idea with that is now the resident has a report, they're enabled to do the work, and there's a lot less questions. Our old inspection program, you got this paper form, pretty confusing. And for us to get the work done, it usually took us coming back out to the house numerous times, 2, 3, 4 times. What we found with this new program that we're using through Fireside is people get the inspection, they get the pictures, they get the points, they get all the material, and it really helps them just get ready to do the work. So it's been great. One goal we set for our program, which we're going to try to keep achievable, is re-inspecting once every 3 years. So we got about 15,000 parcels that are either developed or those undeveloped lots within 100 feet of a house, and we want to be coming back at least once every 3 years to inspect those. So we're going to be doing that with Truckee fire staff. We're going to be doing it in partnership with some HOAs, think like Tahoe Donner and Martis Camp, some of these other communities that do a lot of their own inspections. And last year we even piloted a volunteer educational assessment up in Serene Lakes, where we're trying to maybe empower some of our FireWise leaders and residents to conduct some educational assessments in their neighborhood as well. Just kind of keep people engaged, focusing on defensible space. So here's our activity again. So the areas where you're seeing these clusters of orange, this isn't compliant or non-compliant. It's just an individual inspection point. But we inspected 4,050 homes, so about 24% of the homes in our fire district. That number, it's not quite the third that we need to be in that 3 year, but I think it's right there once we actually find the best way in our software to track all of those HOA inspections that are going on. Which you can see Tahoe Donner, we didn't get any of that data in this. So I think we're right on track to being able to hit this 3 year inspection cycle. And what's crazy is 4,000 inspections led to us dropping 4,600 pins throughout the whole fire district. So 46,000 pins. So every pin is like, hey, this is a dead tree that needs to be removed. This is a cluster of dense shrubs that needs to be thinned out and reduced. So it's a lot of work on our inspections to get these done. But the good news is we ended up with over 2,700 hours of direct community engagement. So that's that one-on-one inspector, homeowner, kind of face-to-face walk around the property evaluation. So a lot of time was spent face-to-face with our residents through this program. So some of the good news is that 78% of our residents that have gotten a report have done at least one mitigation action. So that's pretty good. They get a report, they understand the education, and they're motivated to get the work done. We have a lot of programs available to assist them. And we'd like to get that number up to 100%, right? If we're taking all this time investing in software and doing these inspections, we want everyone to do at least one thing, but we want to keep that work up. So I want to say thanks to the community. And this is how much work they got done. So with Truckee Fire having 4 defensible space inspectors on the ground, getting 4,000 inspections done, the community reported back to us how much defensible space work they did, and they directly reported spending over $835,000, and most of that is on tree service and defensible space contractors, and 23,000 hours of their own time. That's raking pine needles, that's cutting shrubs, that's kind of getting that work done. So, really just well done job to the community for getting these inspections and really being motivated to adapt to wildfire and get this work done. This is a little snapshot of what these inspections look like, right? We're looking at reducing risk, reducing those vulnerabilities where embers, where fire could impact your home. And this is kind of some of the cool stuff we get back. So we send a picture of, hey, there's combustible items and materials underneath your deck. Unfortunately, all of our kayaks and paddle boards and all this, they're all petroleum-based products. They actually do ignite. So we provide the education. You know, you can see there's multiple propane cylinders, things like that. And then the residents report back to us. They can actually go into their report and say, hey, I did the work. Send us a picture, and we check it off from the computer. So pretty cool seeing that before and after. And then, of course, you can see kind of a home that's fully secluded by large overhanging trees encroaching right on that chimney, and you get the before and after snapshot of what that work looks like once the education is completed. 2 minutes left. Cool. So here's some of our highlights. We limbed and cleared enough trees to reach from downtown to Donner Summit, and we moved over 1,000 pickup trucks worth of lumber and other combustible items from away from structures. And the community cleared enough pine needles just from that first 5-foot area around their house to completely cover Donner Lake. So a ton of work being done by the community. One thing we need to know is 60% of our homes that we evaluated had some sort of combustible item within 5 feet of their house. So talk to your neighbors, talk to everybody. That zone 0, that first 5 feet around your house is the most crucial defensible space zone. We want to get that number down to 0. Like, we want there to be 0 combustibles within 5 feet of homes. So we'll keep that work rocking and rolling. We also found that about 1/3 of our homes had vent screenings larger than 1/8 inch, meaning they're vulnerable to ember intrusion during a wildfire. So another easy opportunity for home hardening, getting people educated on that aspect. Talk to them about their vents, replace your vents. All you got to do is upgrade them to 1/8 inch or smaller metal mesh screening. It's a super easy one that has a really good ROI for your house. Try to fly through the rest of these. So forest management, good news is we have a registered professional forester on staff. This is pretty unique. There's not a lot of small fire agencies or small, governmental jurisdictions of any sorts that have a registered professional forester on staff. And we're taking the forest management seriously, and we have the right staff. We're qualified to now run through all the environmental pieces, environmental protection, permitting, get the work done, oversee all of our licensed timber operators and other contractors. So just really cool for Truckee that we have that resource right here available. And as many people know in this room, Dylan and I ended up in a lot of neighborhoods, walked a lot of parcels, really engaged with our community last year, and we want to keep that up. Here's some work we got done. We wrapped up about 709 acres of a CAL FIRE grant. So this was working with a lot of partners, Town of Truckee, Roadside, Holder Hill, Pine Forest, Tahoe, Donner. So a lot of work was wrapped up and completed last year in those areas. And then also we funded about a pilot grant program. We funded a little over $500,000 of work directly with partners. So we worked with Sugar Bowl, Truckee Donner Land Trust, Tahoe Donner, and Gray's Crossing, and got some of these Measure T dollars for forest fuels management back into the community. Incremental benefit, making some of these projects larger, more contiguous with kind of that strategic field break between communities. And we got a lot of it done, and we're going to be impacted by snow to finish this work. But we're really excited to pick the work back up. Here's a little quick kind of before and during pictures. So you're seeing we're reducing that forest density. Same thing, this is out by Gray's Crossing as well. So you can see we've eliminated a lot of those surface fuels, really made it where fire won't move through. Got to make a plug for this. So in our fiscal year 23-24 budget, so coming right up here in July, we allocated over $1 million back into a community block grant program. So what we're saying here is we have our community wildfire protection plan. We're updating ours, but we want the community to come to us with their projects, their priorities, their capacity building. And we got $1 million of Measure T that's going to be allocated to projects on an application basis for forest fuels reduction, forest health and wildfire resiliency, community wildfire preparedness, and wildfire prevention education. So check out our website, truckeefire.org/grants. We're going to end up with a virtual workshop here at the end of this month, and we really want to see the community's projects, come to us. Let's fund the most important work, and let's all work together with that all-hands-on-deck approach. And it's really easy grant money to access. We're trying to make it as non-laborious and hard as possible, because Dylan and I both came from a grant-funded position background, so we know how hard grants can be. Another big one is that, while we were hyper-focused on launching this brand new Measure T program in wildfire prevention in the community, we turned our forester loose to just engage with all of our partners, create this new collaborative thinking about regional forest management, fuels management, wildfire preparedness. And we ended up pulling together an $8.5 million project with over 3,000 acres of forest health treatments with all these partners listed: Martis Camp, North Star, North Tahoe Fire, Sierra Pacific Industries, North Star, Sugar Bowl, Truckee Donner Land Trust, Tahoe Donner, Map's really small, it's hard to see on this screen, but this is those projects that are really important because they're right in our community or right outside of the community, right? Measure T is so hyper-focused within Truckee Fire Protection's district and right in our community, and we wanted to be able to also take the perspective of, hey, what can we do outside of our community, these landscape level big projects. So we ended up pulling together $8.5 million project, and we submitted an application to CAL FIRE for $7 million. So fingers crossed, we're hoping we get this $8.5 million project. $7 million is a grant fund and can really start moving that needle on regional forest health. Cool. Yep. So evacuation, all you need to know, fire district's working really close with the town with Bob Womack here. We launched some funding with a program called LADRIS to do some evacuation modeling and simulation, and we're hoping to incorporate all these constraints and things we learn about evacuation into our community wildfire protection plan, which we're mid-process on. So the CWPP this is going to be the way we engage with all of our partners, our stakeholders, and our community to regain a wildfire mitigation roadmap and a priority-based implementation plan for not just how we're spending Measure T, how we're going after grants and partnerships and work in the community. So we really want the community to come out this summer, probably launching later this summer and fall. We're going to have numerous community events, and we want the community to come out, talk to us, give us their priorities, and understand how we prioritize this wildfire risk reduction work with data, with wildfire modeling, etc. You can learn more about our CWPP online. As far as our new programs, we're keeping everything going last year. We're launching some new programs this summer as well: home hardening, retrofit, dead tree removal, elderly, disabled, low income, and that big wildfire prevention grant program we just threw on. So thank you, Truckee. We appreciate the work. That's our Nevada Fire Safe Council chipping crew dabbing at the end of the season, being stoked to get the last pile out of Serene Lakes. But we're all in it together. More info, check out our website. And I have a full length of this report that we presented to our board and to our Citizens Oversight Committee, truckeefire.org, wildfire prevention. And I'll leave a few of my business cards up front, too, if anyone wants to snag them. Thank you.
All right, we're going to hold questions for at the end because I think we'll have time there. So thank you, Eric Hornvet of the Truckee Fire Protection District. Next up, we have Robert Womack, the Town of Truckee's Emergency Service Manager. And he has over 35 years of experience in the public safety space and at least 5 as the dedicated emergency manager for the town. So welcome, and we look forward to the presentation.
Yeah, so as it comes up, I'll start. Eric kind of mentioned the small town and some of the things we're doing. I think it's important to note, I'm really only aware of one other town in the United States that does what Truckee does, and that's Park City. Park City started their emergency management program back when they had the Olympics, and they realized, hey, we are a target if we're having the Olympics nationwide or international scale. But Truckee's the only other one that I'm aware of. A lot of part-time emergency managers, a lot of other duties is assigned, which is how it was in most of my career. But about 5 years ago, the town said, hey, we think this might be a good idea right after the wine country fires. And I went, yeah, well, we have Todd Honor, and yeah, it looks kind of similar. But we've done a lot of work to get around our hands around the wildfire kind of issues. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about kind of what I do, and that's why I put this up here. In case of fire, exit the building before you start tweeting. How many people have seen the I'm in line trying to evacuate and okay, we just drive and quit texting. And then the other one, person who solves problems when you can't. I firmly believe that emergency management is the program that when nobody knows what to do with it, it comes to me. I don't know how I got the biomass, but I guess it's like removing green waste. So it was interesting, it's great. We've kind of shuffled that to somebody else, it's good. But we end up with a lot of things. And then my other quote that I like to say is, I stay up at night so you don't have to. And so that's kind of, let me see if I can get this to work. Little kind of wordsmithing, sorry it's a little small, but that gets you an idea of the space that I sit in and most emergency managers. And I would say probably 3 to 5 years ago, you didn't see this. Emergency management was very focused on, we went out, we built plans, we did some mitigation, a lot of what Eric's talking about. Then we did a response, and that usually lasted a couple of days, and maybe we were activated 2 or 3 times a year across most large areas. And then we did recovery, which we found out very quickly after the fires. Recovery doesn't end in 2 or 3 weeks. It's 2 or 3 years, or 20 or 30 years. Northridge earthquake, for those of you that remember from 1994, that closed out last year in recovery. So you get an idea how long these things go on. But what has happened in the last 3 to 5 years is we have, not necessarily because we wanted to, but we have suddenly become all of these things. We do, obviously, here, winter weather, right? What is this? I heard that maybe every time we have Good Morning Tuesday or Good Morning Truckee, we have snow. I don't know. I went to bed last night, and I'm like, okay, it might snow. I woke up this morning, and I'm like, okay, we get inches of snow again. We have, obviously, wildfires. We have hazardous materials in town. There's always been there, but we're kind of getting more, aware of. Obviously, there's a rail line. I've seen quite a few rail line incidents this year. Somebody said, where's the fire station downtown? I think they all would like not to be sitting right next to a rail line. Talk about a high threat location. Low incidents. UP's pretty safe, but high threat. Vegetation management. Thank you, Eric. I am so happy I don't have to deal with this anymore. I give that to somebody else. Flooding, earthquakes. Yes, we actually have some fault lines around here. We talked about the CWPP. We'll talk a little bit about local hazard mitigation plan. That's kind of the emergency management component of the community wildfire protection plan. Yes, I got sucked into the general plan update like you'd never believe. And 5 years ago, I didn't think that was anything to do with me. 3 years ago, I realized it probably was. And a year ago, I went, oh, why did I ever do this? Man-made. I mean, let's face it, that's Emergency Management 101. We now have a fifth kind of direction, and that's prevention. And a lot of that has to do with the bad things that are happening in the world that are man-made. Emergency plans, I have 11 of them that I'm trying to develop currently, or parts that go along, annexes, things like the regular plan, how we're going to staff the EOC, alert and warning, evacuation, recovery, animals. Yeah, our animals here are pretty dang important, but you look across the landscape and animals have become one of the biggest parts of emergency management. Climate change, because that's everything, right? We all of a sudden realized we got everything we do has a climate change component. I didn't really think about volcanoes. I'm in a national academy, and we started talking about a volcano down kind of south of us, maybe Mammoth, and we looked at what that would do and what it had done in the past and where it is now, and we went, oh, that's really bad. It's one of the worst 18 in the world. And I went, yeah, if that happens, we're just done. So, and then, of course, that little thing, the pandemic, which I heard somebody say the other day, yeah, we're pretty much through COVID, but the next one's coming. The reality is that we're going to have more like that. So, switching gears, who's responsible for what? Because I think this often gets, everybody thinks, well, just call the feds. They're going to do it for you. The feds do not come and help unless we ask, and we have to ask the county, who has to say they don't have enough resources. Go to the state says we don't have enough resources, and we go to the feds, and the feds give us money. They don't really give us people, they give us money. And if any of you heard the presentation a couple weeks ago at council, the level at which it takes to get federal money is a pretty high bar. We have to have 40 destroyed houses or so in Nevada County. We're nowhere near that. Those destroyed houses have to be 40% of their assessed value. So Truckee, North Tahoe, this area, and we're talking, you got to have $400,000 of damage to your house before it even qualifies to work through the FEMA. So that money that is way up there at the end really isn't there. And FEMA does not like giving money for snow. They think that you live in snow country, you should be used to this, it's normal, and you should budget for it. Yeah, well, we just had 243% of normal. We budget for a lot of things, we don't budget for that. So, that's kind of the unfortunate thing is the feds really aren't there for this. The state will be there for something called public assistance. That does not mean it's for the public. Bad wording. We now teach this early on in emergency management to managers so that they understand it. Public assistance is for local government. Individual assistance, which is what FEMA provides, SBA provides, that's at the very high level. So, unfortunately, I'd say we're probably not going to get a FEMA declaration in this town or in this county. We keep, working hard. and we keep having houses fall down, but trying to tell FEMA that a house fell down in April as a direct result of a early February storm, that's a hard nexus. We all know that's exactly what happened, but I'm talking to people who are used to hurricanes. I'm on the phone, they're like, well, did you have flooding? Well, we had some localized flooding. Well, can we see the flooding damage? How high did it get up on the walls of the houses? You do realize I have like 30 feet of snow out there. There isn't water flowing yet. And they're like, oh, but don't you have flooding? So in the middle there is KLS. They give us all sorts of stuff, and they will find us people, supplies. They are the big brother to when the county can't support us. But the idea is everything starts local at the town or at a special district. We have a lot of special districts in this area. The school district being one this time around that really benefited from some of our programs, not us as in the town, but us as in emergency management, and trying to help and assist them. And then they wanted to go back and look, not the school district, but KLS, at work we had done. And did it help? So that's another part of this component. We spend a lot of money, like Eric was talking about on the mitigation side. Is it making a difference? And we know it is. We go back and look at wildfires and we see people who have done defensible space still have a house. Whereas, people who haven't done it don't have a house. I hate to say this, but I'll say it. People who shovel their roofs don't have their roofs collapse. People who leave stuff on their roofs have roofs collapse. I had to take snow off a roof 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago because they left it all winter. And all of a sudden it became a problem. But that is the kind of mitigation idea. So what are we doing to lessen these impacts? At the end of the day, Eric kind of alluded to it, but we know that money spent up front is about a 1 to 6 return. So for every dollar we spend, we save $6 on the back end. That's a generalized way they do budget analysis. We have to go and figure out where do we put it. And the LHMP, Local Hazard Mitigation Program, is the big part of where we go in and we figure out what are our risks and what is the priority to those risks and how do we mitigate them if we can. So the last time we did this, we have to do it every 5 years to stay eligible for FEMA funding, was in 2018. So do the math. Yeah, we're getting really close. We are going to have to get this done this summer, and we're working with the county. We will be an annex. The town will be an annex to that. But we go, we bring in the community, we bring in the experts, we do all the evacuation modeling, we look at where we can do vegetation fuels management, we look at where we can put plans in place so you don't develop in avalanche zones or you don't develop in flood zones and things like that. And we figure out, okay, what is the biggest bang for buck? And because the federal government's getting smart, they want to see programs that we then use to put in for funding later. So you can get funded for programs that aren't in the LHMP, but it's pretty hard. Same thing is coming with the CWPP. If you're going to want to fund a large-scale project for fuels mitigation, it probably needs to be in your CWPP unless you somehow just happen to identify it late in the game. Last time around, we put traffic in there, and I would say I absolutely had nothing to do with it. The community put traffic in there, and it wasn't the east side, it was the west side that was tired of traffic down there related to winter weather and related to primarily our issues with winter issues. Now, I love Eric's picture. That was a construction zone. I need to be clear that the freeway, when open and both lanes flowing, will flow everything we need to flow out of this community. The bottleneck isn't the freeway. The bottleneck will always be our surface streets. So as we're planning and doing this work, we're looking at our surface streets, our 1 and 2 lane road. Well, I say one lane each way roads. So our 2 lane roads. 3 minutes. So CWPP and the big thing out of that, evacuation modeling, that's great. How long does it take to get out of Todd Honor? How long does it take to get out of subdivision? Fire behavior modeling is just as important and is really a brand new science that's actually being ground truthed well. I've been asking for this for years because, sure, I know how fast a fire travels. I've heard all these stories, 1 minute it's traveled 1,000 feet or whatever, but what does that really mean when we're trying to model a mosquito fire and how fast is it going to come to Truckee and how much time do I have to plan? And then the wild component to this, vegetation modeling. We used to have very large spaces. As you saw Eric mention, we have much smaller spaces now that we can look at. We're able to much better understand how our vegetation in our subdivisions, areas surrounding our subdivisions, are going to affect fire behavior, which is going to tell me how long I have to evacuate an area and how soon I have to get people out. And do I have to look at a different alternative than evacuation because I can't get them out? That's as fast as you can go. I'd say questions. I think we're holding them.
Yeah, we'll hold it.
Okay.
All right, Robert, roll down. Next up, we have Craig Griesbach, who's the Director of Emergency Services for Nevada County. He has 17 years of experience in community development, emergency services, planning, policy programming, and delivering projects. He has regional policy planning activities related to addressing emergency response, wildfire safety, evacuation planning, drought, and forest health impacts of climate change. So welcome, Craig Griesbach.
Thanks for having me up here. I realized sitting there that my presentation is entirely too long, so I'm going to move first thing through. Good thing is Eric and Bob covered a lot of the same types of programs. We have a lot of similarities, and that is intentional, really because all of our mission is to prepare and protect the community. So I'm going to just a quick overview of OES and our team, kind of our programs, a lot of the software that we use, a little debrief on the storm activity that we had from February until now, and kind of what we're doing regionally as a team working together. So, the last several years we've had a lot more incidents and need based on emergency preparedness. It's not just wildfire, it's climate change, it's drought, it's a pandemic, it's flooding, it's tree mortality. Our Emergency Operations Center a few years ago was only activated a couple days a year. Just this year, we've already been activated 21 days. So it's pretty substantial. We're all seeing it. And with that, really we built this team. It's a 6 full-time position team, but we also strategically use interns, volunteers, limited term positions for grants, really to get as much done as we can with the resources that we have available. We have a strong partnership with our sheriff's office, so we have a sheriff lieutenant embedded in our OES team that is our EOC coordinator. This has been a game changer in responding timely to emergency events in our EOC. We're embedded within the General Information and General Services Agency at the county. Really, this has created more capacity for the community, and we've been able to implement more projects and grants, and we're going to continue to build on that over the years to come. So just a quick organizational chart. Again, we're under the leadership of Steve Monahan in the Information and General Services Agency, and we're cascading from there. So our Emergency Operations Center, a lot of people think, well, OES, you're manning the Emergency Operations Center. Anyone knows anything other than a micro disaster, you have to have a deep bench and a lot of capacity. So essentially we have a 30-person team throughout the entire county that's made up from district attorneys to information systems analysts to myself, scattered all throughout really to where we have that deeper bench to respond to long incidents like the winter storm where we were activated 19 days for. So a lot of what we do is hazard identification. Eric and Bob explain this a little bit more. So we do a lot of proactive work to make sure we're prepared and we have the right information to respond and mitigate disaster. So a lot of these plans are emergency operation plan. A lot of the annexes are based on this plan, all the way from heat and cold emergency events, mass care and sheltering planning, local hazard mitigation plan, our CWPP, and so on. Our main priorities right now, which are huge projects, as anyone that's been involved with these would know, our Community Wildfire Protection Plan is underway right now. We're trying to get a consultant on board, and that will be a 12 to 18-month process. It does take a lot of time, and there's a lot of community engagement, basically because it's for the community to use and implement projects, obtain funding, obtain resources, things like that. Our Local Hazard Mitigation Plan update is going on as well, and that's about 12 months out. And we have an evacuation study that we're looking to get a consultant on board as well that's 12 to 18 months out that will inform our evacuation priorities. So again, just going on, a lot of people think it's like, what exactly are you doing in the off season, with wildfire? Well, we're watching the weather. Is it a red flag warning? Is there storms coming in? What messaging do we need to get out to the public to get them prepared? Because you would be surprised, well, maybe not, how many people are like, oh my God, it snowed 2 feet last night. I had no idea. Well, watch the weather, watch social media. Something that we have implemented as well, and Eric mentioned this, I believe, was our Ladris software. This is an evacuation-based software. We have a pre-evacuation planner on our Nevada County OES dashboard. So that's the picture to the right here. I just did a mock example of an evacuation in Lake Prosser Lakeview Estates to Soda Springs in the event of a disaster. If all these people were evacuating, which all these blips are an evacuation of a household, it would take 2 hours and 59 minutes. So what you'll find using this software, it informs you need to leave early so you don't get stuck in traffic. I mean, pretty much anywhere, East or West County, it'll show that through. So we have a lot of early alert and warning systems that are unified with the town and really throughout the entire county, all the way from Code Red. Hopefully you're familiar with that and signed up. We have WIA, which are wireless emergency alerts. We have iPOS, which are integrated public alert and warning systems, similar to what you'll see on, run across your screen of the TV. We have the Know Your Zone software, so the evacuation-based zone evacuation software, as you'll see on the bigger picture here. So this is our zone where we're at right now is TRKE 164. It's good to know that zone because when you get a code red alert for an evacuation, it's going to be based on this zone. So that's something we spend a lot of time with the public, is educating them to have that readily available and know what they mean. So again, just knowing what emergency alerts are, because if you sign up for code red on your phone or you download the app, you're going to get different messaging. So educating people what this messaging means, because if you have the app, you're going to get notified of emergencies within potentially 25 miles that doesn't necessarily affect your residence, but you could be shopping near that location. So we spend a lot of time educating the public of what that really means. So we have our defensible space inspection program. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but it's very similar to Truckee. We spend a lot of time with them. The Truckee's prevention team is really on the cutting edge of a lot of these programs. Whether you realize it or not, there's a lot of lessons learned that we've gained from them, even though our program has been implemented for quite some time. We did do some recent ordinance updates, really for alignment with some of the cities and town requirements, but also just some cleanup as well. So recovery, as Bob mentioned, this takes years and years and hundreds of hours of staff time. So right now we're managing 6 different recovery events, which we have a single staff member that's managing those, and we just got repayment for Jones Fire on the west side, which was approximately 3 years ago. So it takes a long time, a lot of work with Cal OES, a lot of work with FEMA. So again, recovery, Bob explained kind of FEMA IA and PA assistance, which is a big struggle to prove that, but we spend a lot of time trying to get those resources for the community. We have the relief fund, we have stand-up local assistance centers when there's disasters, things like that for recovery. So we talk about a lot about investment value and how we can stretch resources as much as possible. So they say for every dollar spent on mitigation, save $6 on future disaster losses. That's straight from FEMA. So we really try to mitigate on the front end, so we're not having to pay for cleanup of disasters. So using that same philosophy, for every dollar we spend of general fund for grant match, we get about $15 of value, and we're working on trying to get that over $40 in value in the years to come. So we get a lot of bang for our buck for grant match, even though grants are a lot of work. To give a little bit of a sight picture of what we're doing, because we're managing a ton of grants right now and will be in the future. We have 18 grant projects that we're currently managing. We have 11 pending, so we're waiting to hear if we're going to get funding. And we have 6+ conceptual projects, and we have a Q3 of this year intensity of managing around $70 million in grants. So that's everywhere from fuel mitigation projects to updating our plans to funding staff, defensible space and hardening programs, things like that. It's going to be a lot in the Q3 back half of this year. So projects and programs, again, shaded fuel breaks on the east and west side. A lot of the ones that we're talking about, we work directly with Eric and Kevin and their team on application for grants and really informing those decisions, working with them on their CWPP to inform future projects. We're working with CAL FIRE to get in their NEU planning on the east side more of a presence. So this is a work in progress on the east side, but this is something we're spending a lot of time on and we want to invest. We have our Access and Functional Needs Phase 1 and Phase 2 program, which is essentially defensible space clearing that's free for those underserved populations. We have our FireWise Community Micro Grant program for road clearing. We have roadside vegetation projects. We have storm cleanup projects. So right now we applied for a $1 million grant for storm cleanup with some strategic areas in East County as well. We do a ton of community outreach and education. That's a lot of what we do to educate and prepare the community. Last year we completed almost one outreach event with the community out in the community. For about every workday. So we're out there all the time with our staff at community fairs, at farmers markets, community organizations, things like that. Just a quick brief on the winter storm back in February, kind of continuing. Our EOC was operational 19 days. It was a state, local, and federal emergency that was declared. There's over 10,000 staff hours spent on this response. At one time, this is mainly on the west side, there was over 17,000 customers without power and communication. There were major impacts, obviously, to roads, buildings, and infrastructure. Our welfare checks were up 600%. Our rescues were up 1,200%. We operated a shelter for 14 days, and we distributed over 5,000 sandbags when we had some snow melt following those events. So moving forward, really working on the recovery efforts that Bob covered earlier. We have storm surveys out there to try to capture that data and prove to FEMA and Cal OES that we have this need. We had substantial damage, about $5 million in public damages and north of $20 million in private damages recorded based on these surveys. We have tax relief options right now, so if you have over $10,000 of damage to your property, you can file for tax relief with our office at the county. We have building permit fee waivers in the unincorporated area of the county for buildings that were damaged and you need to get those repaired. And we have upcoming green waste disposal options and program that we're working directly with the town and Truckee Fire to get stood up mid to late summer. So our partnerships, at all the partners we have, I really value the ones we do have on the east side just because they are on the cutting edge of a lot of what we're trying to do. And so in a lot of ways, we're learning from them for what we're trying to implement on the west side. We had their team kind of touring some of our projects a couple of weeks ago. So we're really trying to work together with lessons learned on both sides, even though, the issues and priorities might be a little bit different just based on vegetation, topography, things like that. So really, when there are emergency events, regardless of where they're at, they're in the town, they're in Truckee Fire Protection District, or they're on the west side, know that we have a unified response. Bob is like Butterfield Fire, all these ones. Bob is our first phone call. Do you need help? What do you need? Do you need us to task Cal OES? When we had the winter storms, we had some crews tasked doing snow removal, removing trees, things like that on the west side. We were able to work together to get them up here to help shoveling snow off roofs, things like that. So we essentially are one team, even though we work for different jurisdictions. We have same messaging. So we use similar software, so like Code Red, Zone Haven, we all use that. We partner on mitigation projects like the grant for forest health that was submitted. We partnered on that. Our defensible space inspection programs. We share an office space at Truckee Fire. Our staff members up there one day a week. Outreach and education we partner on in this side, and really with strategic planning. So one of our staff are on the team that's working on Truckee CWPP and vice versa for the west side. So a lot of unity and collaboration on the east side, which I'm very passionate about that throughout the county. So we have equity. Looking forward, some of our areas, really we're looking at wildfire initiatives is still a priority, but we're looking for multiple benefit. How can we have mitigation projects on our ingress and egress routes that also help during storms to where we don't have so much down vegetation on evacuation routes? So things like that where it's dual purpose. Invest in our planning efforts, so we're making decisions based on the most recent science and facts. We're focusing on large-scale evacuation priorities. We can't fix every single evacuation priority, but the main choke points, the main arteries, things like that, how can we improve those based on our resources? We're going to focus on larger fuel mitigation projects, similar to what Eric was saying earlier. How can we get the biggest bang for our buck that will protect multiple communities, not just a single community? Continue our robust engagement and outreach in the community. Cultivate larger projects or smaller projects into larger projects. If there's anything I can stress, it's this, because we're doing so much. We have so many nonprofits, the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation. We have Truckee Fire doing projects. We're doing projects. How can we align projects not just in Nevada County, but essentially a consistent area of defense from Placer all the way to Sierra? So we don't have lines because disasters don't really care. So we're working with Placer, we're working with Tahoe area all the way to Sierra County, to where if we're applying for grants, we can have a fuel break going from Placer all the way across Truckee into Sierra County. So where we can really flex that muscle of partnership. And really just continue to invest in partnerships. Sometimes, we have conflicting interests, especially when it comes to funding and resources, but most of the time we don't. Most of the time we have a common theme of what we're really trying to do. Again, we're all trying to protect and prepare the community. So really, how can we leverage these partnerships? How can we support each other, whether that be letters of support for grants or staffing or whatever? I want to make sure we're doing that in the years to come. With that, I'll just end on, obviously we're going to do questions at the end, but my availability, please reach out to me at any point in time. I'll be hanging out. If you want to get my card, my contact information. Our community wildfire coordinator is based out of Truckee. That's a staff member that's working one day out of Truckee Fire, but also she's teleworking up here and spends a lot of time up here as well. Hardy, our supervisor Bullock, also has a staffer up here. If you don't know him, many of you probably do. He's very accessible and very responsive. Please do not hesitate to reach out to him. We work closely. I talk to him almost every day. I'm really talking about a lot of these projects and programs. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Craig Griesbach, the Director of Emergency Services for Nevada County. And next up, switching gears entirely, we have David Love, the Chairman of the Truckee Tahoe Air Show and Family Festival, here to tell us what's going to go on this summer.
Thanks. Well, we're coming up again. We're going to be on Saturday, June 24th at the airport. We've made a couple major changes for this year. One of them is we're going to really emphasize a lot more STEM activity. We've been really, really lucky in getting a lot of support that we didn't have previously for those kinds of activities. Where's your arrow? There's your arrow. Thank you very much. For us, this is fairly simple. We want to offer a family festival and air show activity that every family living in the basin can afford to go to. So that's why it doesn't cost any money. You come without paying to enter. You don't have to pay for parking to enter. Save a couple bucks for a few hamburgers and lunch. And we think that that's superly important. I don't know if you know about this. If you go to the Sacramento Air Show with 2 kids, you're into about $1,500 by the time you're done with parking and seating and food and admission. We think that's really important. Our other goal really is, we know that unless we excite young people, they're not going to go to the mass science area of the world. We're living in a world right now where civilian aviation, the airlines, the military is unbelievably dramatically short of aircrew members, of people supporting what's going on. They can't even fill their slots. Now, I wish that was true when I was young. I had to fight like mad to get into the Air Force and pilot training. Didn't think I was going to make it at first. There was so much competition. Today, it's just the opposite. So we think this is that opportunity for folks. And we're going to do a couple other things. We think honoring veterans are important. I'm kind of a biased person. I came out of the Vietnam era. It was a little different coming home then than it is today. And I think I really appreciate people who reach back to our generation and earlier generations. And I think the community is doing a great job with the current military generation. But I think that's really important to stress that. Now, we have one of our favorite participants. This is General Bud Anderson. He's 101 years old. I was at his house the other day, and Bud said, "When's the air show? I want to come up again this year." This last summer, Bud has this great book he brought up. Bud and I sat around for about an hour in a hangar, and I asked him questions, and he told stories. And we may do that again this summer. What a unique experience, both for us as adults, but I think for young people to be introduced to this sort of history of our world, history of our generation, history of our military. That's what we're trying to accomplish out there. Now, in our STEM Expo, we think it's really important that it's hands-on. Kids get a chance to see what they can do. Families are able to motivate other kids. So we're doing this in a couple of ways. In our tent, we'll have over 15 major exhibitors this year from all over the region, showing their wares, conservation issues in the community, career issues. The California Aeronautic University got a hold of us and said, can we come? And they're going to bring up flight simulators and displays and information on the field. Huge footprint of their own on the field. Safe Launch for Healthy Futures has somewhat of a focus of substance abuse prevention education, but also looking at STEM. They actually do a fun thing. They bring a white airplane that has no, except the legal numbers on it, and the kids get to, with paint, write their names, make statements, write on this airplane. They get pretty excited about that opportunity. Then at the end of the day, somebody's got to come wash the airplane so they can go someplace else because it's watercolor. They have this unbelievably engaging kind of activity for us. Working with the school district, we're going to do something a little different. We must do the entire air show on Friday for safety, for practice, so that we have all of this really choreographed in a really effective manner. So we're going to invite over 150 kids out on Friday for a private show. In addition to that, they're going to meet the pilots, two kinds of pilots, military pilots, as well as our performer pilots, to see their airplanes, see what they do. So we think that's a really good opportunity. Plus, all the STEM activities are going to be up and running for that group of kids on Friday. So much more of a hands-on, unique, personal experience than on Saturday, because then they're competing with 15,000 other people who are at the show on Saturday. And so we're going to try it this year. We're really appreciative of the school district of making extra efforts to make sure that happens, because we've got to do buses and all that kind of good stuff to make it work. So we're going to do that on Friday, kind of a private little experience with hands-on, face-to-face with an awful lot of young people. The Truckee's Kids Zone Museum reaches is the very little kids. So we're going to do this. It's right next to the terminal. We got face painting, we got bounce houses, and also if you bring a couple kids, you may want to sort of tag team it, so little kids and one caretaker can spend some time in the kids zone. The other one actually can go walk the ramp and see other things that are going on. We also repeat our flying portion, so we do it in the morning, take an hour break for lunch. Also gives me a chance to interview Colonel Anderson and others. And do some forums, and then we repeat the whole show in the afternoon. And I think a lot of people find if you got a bunch of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds, 4 hours is probably more than enough. So it gives us that really great opportunity to be more user-friendly to our families. We have 3 major folks who are involved in putting this on: Truckee's Kids Zone Museum, Experimental Aircraft Association, and the Optimist Club. And they put hundreds and hundreds of hours of volunteer time in all year long to make this thing come together and function and happen. And so we're really excited about that. Some of you in here do a lot. John Minacchio back there, I have to thank John because he made sure I was able to come today. And John is one of our key people of our committee. And so that's something that I think is really important. So we have a group who said, we'll work the year to make this happen. Why do they do that? Because they're really dedicated to this stuff. Plus, we will put back into the community over $80,000 of funds that we raise on Saturday and through this sponsorship program to do youth programs all year long. So this is really a funnel of an additional funding stream back into the community for things that we think are really important. As much as possible STEM focused. All our performers will spend some time on the field talking to kids and families, and that's kind of cool. We had a unique experience last year that's got even better this year. We have a young woman who flies F-18s, and she brought her airplane up last year. She's going to bring it again. actually doing the Super Bowl. They let her take her F-18, and she was part of the flyover. If any of you saw the Super Bowl flyover, we had 4 women pilots showing their skill set as well as some really cool airplanes for the opening of the Super Bowl. She will be here with her F-18, so we think that's kind of... And she also, her team was heavily involved in filming Top Gun Maverick. If you don't know, that was mostly filmed here. Any of you see Top Gun Maverick? Did you see that airport that blew up? Do you know which airport blew up? South Lake Tahoe. They really did blow up the South Lake Tahoe airport because they were going to destroy the runway. So the movie company gave them $1 million and said, let us blow your airport up for you. And that's kind of cool local. Also, if you look really carefully when they're running up the canyons and look left, you'll see Fallen Leaf Lake. Because a lot of the low-level stuff was done up here. So I got to do 2 hours with all of the people who did the behind-scene filming for Top Gun Maverick at an aviation event a while ago. So they showed us all the stuff we didn't get to see during the movie. So it was cool. So we're going to have 4 performers for sure in terms of individual performers. Bob Freeman, Vicki Benzing. We're going to have a twin ship. We're going to have a small jet. And we just found out today we're going to have a B-25 and a Japanese Zero doing a World War II reenactment as a part of our air show with music and sound and a little noise. And then people will get to meet those pilots and see their aircraft. We're going to have military flybys. This is the T-38s out of Beale. They're coming back again this year. They let me fly them when I was in the Air Force, so I'm glad to see them back again. We're going to fly kids on Sunday with EAA Young Eagles. They can sign up on Saturday. We're going to send 2 kids to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, to the largest aviation event, to a summer camp for kids in aviation. Following this event we have, we're going to have a hospitality tent, so if you want to sit inside, get some food, a little bit to drink, look at our website, and you can buy a VIP upgrade. It's about the only place you can spend money to watch the show, but if you want to do it special, we'll give you that opportunity. John Minacchio and others are heavily involved in getting both local community groups, local community nonprofits, and local businesses that want to come on the field. Businesses can sell their wares. Nonprofits can explain who they are. That's an exciting thing for us. We're going to do something new this year. Take a look at our website or the airport website, but we're going to actually have a no-cost ticket that you can download, and you can earn points all day long. If you take the bus, you get extra points. If you ride your bike, you get extra points. And at the end, we're going to give prizes away. So this is not an admission ticket. This is kind of a raffle, have fun kind of adventure opportunity for folks. So we're just gearing that up. So look at our websites. You'll learn more about it during our websites. And I thank you for your time. Thank you, sir.
David Love, chairman of the Truckee Tahoe Air Show and Family Festival. One quick question. What is the date of that?
It's Saturday, June 24th.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to do stump speeches. We have 2 here from the chamber. So 2 exciting events coming up. First, next week on Thursday, April 27th, hosting for chamber members only, an evening with council member Jan Zabriskie to discuss the general plan update before it returns to council on May 9th. You can find out about that through Truckee.com or emailing Jessica. Yes, not Truckee.com. It's exclusive for chamber members only. And then the other event is the Truckee Hiring Fair on Wednesday, May 3rd from 3 to 6 p.m. at the Truckee Rec Center. And if you'd like more information on that, you can email melissa@truckee.com, or talk to her on the way out. She's back there. All right. Nothing else. We'll go into the raffle. Oh, yeah. Door prize. Sorry, we'll figure this out. All right, door prizes. We're going to do a starter kit for Preparedness and a return ticket to Good Morning Truckee. Go with 458 4868. 458 4868. All right. 458-4867. All right. Congratulations. Next up, a $15 sustainable Visit Truckee Tahoe gift card, and that is going to go to the lucky holder of 458-4883. All right. We'll trust you. You have a badge on. Let's do all right, reusable beverage and food container baskets here, and that will go to 458-4888. Go. And finally, a $25 gift certificate to Grizzly Menswear. 458-4877. All right, see? All right. Pays to present. I say that every time. It's not rigged. All right, well, thank you all for coming out. We appreciate it. Good morning, Truckee. See you next month. Be safe out there on the roads.